Okay, great. Thank you all for attending this High Seas presentation. So it will just be very general about what High Seas is and how it looks like. So just very briefly, who am I? So my name is Kato Claeys. I'm from Belgium, Europe, obviously. I have a background in architectural engineering and space studies, and I have a passion for aviation. So the past year and a half, I was the High Seas Director of Operations, and I was in charge of the EMIS 23 and 24 missions. So about this presentation, so first just in general, what is High Seas? Where is it located? A bit about the history of High Seas. Then about the habitat, the layout, how does it look like, stuff like that. And then about the missions, but this presentation is focused on the most recent missions, so the missions of 2023 and the missions of 2024. And then a bit about the experiments, just a general overview, what type of experiments we can conduct there, some examples, but just very briefly. So in general, what is High Seas, where is it located, and what's the history? So what is High Seas? High Seas stands for the Hawaii Space Exploration, Analogue, and Simulation. So it's a habitat for space simulations. And so we are able to conduct moon missions and Mars missions. So our focus is on scientific experiments and testing of technology. And we can host crews up to 6 crew members. And it gives researchers the experience of being an analog astronaut. So how we work most of the time, we invite independent researchers and we put them together as a crew, and then they do their personal research. So where is it located? In the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It's on the islands of Hawaii. So it's situated on the most southern island, also called the island of Hawai'i, or the Big Island. So if we take a closer look to the Big Island, so there are 5 volcanoes on there. 4 of them are still considered to be active, and the hub is situated more or less in the middle of the island. So it's situated on the Mauna Loa volcano, which is the biggest active volcano in the world, which is pretty cool. And it's called Mauna Loa, which is in Hawaiian Long Mountain. So this is just a picture from Google Earth, how it looks like. So it's a quarry site on the Mauna Loa Observatory Road, and these are the coordinates if anybody would be interested. So then why is this location so important? Why is this like the ideal location to do a space mission? So it's situated at 8,200 feet, so about 2,500 meters above sea level. And it's more or less visually isolated from any town around. And it's still accessible. For the people who did a High Seas mission, the road towards there is not the most comfortable one, but it's reachable by 4-wheel drive. So it's a very remote location. Weather-wise, of course, it's Hawaii, so all year long it's warm enough to do missions, and it's never too cold, never too warm.
So sorry.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I'm very sorry for that. So in mission length-wise, so the habitat is able to do very long missions. So there was a 1-year mission, but it's also able to do only like 1-week missions. So it's very time independent. And of course, the biggest asset of this location is the volcanic lava. So we have 2 types of volcanic lava around the habitat, which is A'a lava, which is more like the spiky kind of lava, and Pahoehoe, which is more the lobbed lava, and of course we have lava tubes and skylights. So it's very Mars and Moon-like, the environment. So a bit about the history. So High Seas started in 2013 as a collaboration between NASA and the University of Hawaii. So their focus back then was really Mars missions. So they did all long-term missions of several months, even 1 year. So then the collaboration stopped, and in 2019 they started collaborating with the International Moon-Based Alliance, and then the focus shifted a bit more towards moon missions. And then in 2022 there was an eruption of the Mauna Loa volcano, so of course all missions were stopped, and High Seas was paused for a certain amount of time. And then in 2023 we restarted the EMIS missions. So this is just the history in a bit more detail. So in the beginning, the NASA missions, like the long-term missions, 4 months, 4 months, 8 months, 12 months, and 8 months. And then some other missions, and then in 2022, the eruption of Mauna Loa, and then in 2023, the restart of the most recent missions. So again, this presentation will be focused on the most recent missions. And at the end of this presentation, I will show you a video of the very, very first mission at Hawai'i, so a 4-month mission in 2013. And then you can see there are plenty of things who are still the same. There are also plenty of things that has changed. So you can see for yourself what the differences are in that 10 years of Hawai'i. And of course, many of you know, we encountered several challenges at Hawai'i. So first of all, it started with, at the end of the NASA missions, there were some challenges. And then they changed the type of missions. Then in 2022, there was the eruption. When the missions were paused, then there was a restart after that. And at this moment, so most of you know in Hawaii, the habitat itself is a property of Hank Rogers. However, you can't own a piece of land there. So the habitat is situated on state land. And so initially they started with a permit of 5 years. Then they were able to renew it for another 5 years. We filed every single document. We tried everything we could. But somehow they didn't allow us to stay there. So at this moment, the program is unfortunately paused. There are still negotiations with the state of Hawaii to try to stay there, but unfortunately at this moment we can no longer organize missions. So just to be very open and transparent about this. So then about the habitat, the structure and the layout. So the habitat, how does it look like? So it's a 1,200 square feet dome, so about 110 square meters. So it's a steel structure covered with fabric. It's of course off-grid and it has a low impact on the environment. It's powered by solar panels, so we have 36 solar panels. And there's also a backup generator for in case it would be cloudy for several days, that the crews still have energy. And here on this picture, you see the beautiful Mauna Loa in the background. Mauna Kea, sorry. So this is how the floor plans look like. So you see there is a big common space with 6 different crew stations. Then there's a dining area, a kitchen, a laboratory, and a bathroom on the ground floor. And the airlock is situated over here with the engineering bay attached to it, which is not on this floor plan. And then upstairs, there are 6 separate crew quarters and then a second bathroom. So how does that look like? This is the common area. So the workstations are used to file reports, to do questionnaires, experiments, those kind of things. And then there is also a big open area, which is used for group activities, to do sports, to do yoga, stuff like that, and whatever they feel like doing during a mission. Then this is the kitchen, so used, of course, to consume food, also for briefings, debriefings. Also, for example, if there is a call with mission control, it's projected on the screen, or the schedule is projected, stuff like that. And this is a kitchen with just very normal, earthy equipment. So there is an oven, microwave, rice cooker, blender, bread maker, dishwasher. So very normal equipment. This is the lab. So there is microscope, centrifuge, sterilizer, incubator, those kind of things. And then we also have an aquaponic system inside the lab. This is the bathroom, so we have a compost toilet, urinal, and a shower. Of course, it's a moon mission, so the showers are very, very limited because of the weather. This is the bathroom upstairs, so another compost toilet and just a sink. This is how it looks like upstairs, so all the rooms are labeled. And this is how a room looks like. So it's very, very tiny, but at least if you want, you can be visually isolated from your other crew members. But for example, if someone is running on a treadmill, you can definitely hear that. So the walls are very thin. It's just a single bed, very small desk, very, very small cupboard. And people who did a high seas mission will definitely know that you hit at least your arm 5 times because of the inclined wall. So this is the engineering bay. So all the EVA equipment is stowed over here. So on the right side, you see the EVA suits. And on the left side, you see the backpacks and helmets. So the backpacks are obviously for simulated oxygen, and the helmets have the communication systems. And then in the middle of this picture, you see the batteries where all the solar energy is stored. And then at the back, you see the workshop. So if something is broken, of course, what does happen in missions, they can try to fix it. This is the airlock, so the door you see there is a door towards the habitat. And at the right side, it's not super visible, but that's a door to go outside. So this time, the airlock is pressurized because the light is green, so people can enter the door towards the habitat. For people with good eyes, there is 1,000 hectopascal written there, so which is about habitat pressure. Then about the missions, so again, about the most recent missions. So what we did missions of 6 days and missions of 12 days. So there was always 1 day of pre-mission training. Of course, it's a confined space. And there was limited communication with the outside world. So they were not allowed to use social media or anything like that. If there was Wi-Fi, if they needed Wi-Fi for their particular experiment, that was allowed. But all the other websites were blocked, so they were only able to use whatever they needed for their experiments, and they were not allowed to go on any other website. Of course, there's limited access to water, so showers were very restricted, and it's an ideal location for extravehicular activity, EVAs. So it's a special diet. It was freeze-dried vegetarian. It's a very tight schedule, so made by MCC. They had to follow it very strictly. I will give an example later. And sports, so crew members were, it was mandatory to do 1 hour of sports each day. So defined crew roles, we always try to have crews that were as mixed as possible, so gender-wise, age-wise, background-wise. And then there was mission control and mission patches and mission names, and I will elaborate on some of them. So for pre-mission training, we had 3 parts of pre-mission training. So the first one was environmental threats, communication, conflict, and managing workloads. So that was given by IP Labs with Emily. And then the second part of the pre-mission training was emotional intelligence and emotional regulations, which is given by the high seas psychologist Celia. And then, of course, there was a big part about all the high seas habitat systems, the experiments, the procedures, which was given by myself. And then about the roles, of course, it's very similar to any other mission. So there's always a commander, who is the mission leader, a vice commander that's assisting the commander in those tasks. Also, if the commander is not there, he will take over the tasks. A space engineer, so the main tasks at high seas for the space engineer is following up all the systems, all the sensors, so the water level, the battery level, those kind of things. If there's something broken, to try to fix it. The chief scientist, which is the main responsible person for the scientific experiments, a medical officer that's doing daily medical checks with all the Analogue astronauts, communication officer, main point of contact for mission control, a nutrition specialist, making sure that the crew has balanced meals, and then a public outreach officer that's in charge of taking pictures and journaling. So for the people who did pay attention, we only have 6 crew members. We have 8 roles, so some of the roles can be combined. And all of the crew members got a mission name, so Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, so that was used during the mission. Then mission control, so we had 2 different types of mission control. So we had Capcom, who was the main point of contact for the crew. So mission control was making a schedule, was giving daily briefings and debriefings, was also briefing the crews about weather and safety, was also giving the EVA approvals or disapprovals. And then there was also a support crew. So there's always at least 1 person on island available, and there was also additional online support. So there was a doctor on call, there was a psychologist that could be contacted, and there were a bunch of engineers that could be contacted. So this is just an example how a schedule could look like. So there were EVAs planned, and of course they had time to do reports, to do general things like preparation of food and doing dishes, those kind of things. There were different experiments. There was everybody gets 1 hour of free time. And then sometimes there are group activities, like crew activities planned, doing yoga together, having crew time. So 1 hour of sports. and those kind of things. So then for sports, so it was mandatory to do 1 hour of sports, but the crews were free to do whatever they wanted. So if they wanted to run for 1 hour on a treadmill, totally fine. If they preferred to do something more like yoga or stretching, that was fine as well. So they just had to work on their physical health 1 hour a day, but they could fill in that freely. So you see, for example, there were people who preferred doing badminton, or there was someone who did a trapeze show, stuff like that was all possible. And then the EVAs, so there was always an EVA leader. So for an EVA, they all had to file an EVA request and make a report afterwards. There was always HABCOM, so someone in the habitat who was in contact with the crew outside. So before going on an EVA, they had to do the full fitting, and they could do a communication check, and then the full airlock procedures, of course, depressurizing the airlock to go outside, and the other way around. And of course, we worked in a buddy system, which is pretty logical, so nobody ever goes on an EVA alone. And then the high seas diet, so it's the vegetables and fruits are all freeze-dried, and then there's also dry and dehydrated food, and there is some additional canned food as well. So I know people love the food at high seas. So here are just some examples of mission patches and mission names. So we wanted to honor the Hawaiian culture, so we decided to give them all Hawaiian names. So these are just some examples. These are the later missions in 2023. And these were finally the missions in 24. So we had, in the last 1 year and a half, we had about 12 missions. And then about the experiments, so again, it's just very general. I will just give an idea what's possible there. So if you have specific questions about the experiments, please contact the PIs. They know much more about it than I do. So we can roughly divide the experiments in these 6 categories. So of course, it's a very interesting geological terrain. So there are a lot of geological experiments. There are also some biological experiments, some experiments about crew health, about the crew psychology, about some technology stuff, and also, of course, the ideal place to test EVA equipment. So here are some examples about the geological experiments. So there were a lot of infrared observations, X-ray observations, and there was also the HADAR experiment. So it stands for Heat-Assisted Detection and Ranging. So what they actually do is they combine thermal images together with infrared images and machine learning to create much more vivid pictures. So for example, this one, so you can see this is actually a HADAR picture of another experiment. So this is Mason Robbins. I've seen that he will appear in some other presentations today. So he was commander for twice of the high seas missions and vice commander of one. So he tested a full suit, but this specific experiment was how to image things, so the different textures about it. Then some biological experiments. So we had aquaponics, some people were culturing some bacteria. There was also someone who made like a survey of all the botanical biodiversity around the habitat. And there was also the kefir experiment. So Katie is working for NASA Ames, and she tested how kefir could be an additional nutrition for some of the high seas crews. So she brought like pouches with kefir powder. She just had to add water, and then she had like a pH checker, like food safe pH checker, to check if it was ready and if they could eat it. Then some experiments about crew health. So there were some experiments about mindfulness. There was also an app that was tested. So it was on a phone. You just had to look at it, and then it could tell you what your breathing rhythm was and what your heart rate was. So they tested it up there in the habitat. Also some tests about nutrition. And then my personal favorite experiment, the influence on motion sickness on your cognitive performances. So Carol Ann is actually a PhD student here in Switzerland. She's working at the University of Zurich. And so her experiment was, so she tried to make us motion sick. So we had to sit at an office chair like that. She was spinning us around. I was part of that crew, so she was spinning us around at the same pace. So, and then if you tilt your head, you do get motion sick. So feel free to test it at home. And then she tried to test how our cognitive performance and our social decision making was before and after being motion sick. Then there were also several tests about crew psychology. So we had Paro, some tests about cognitive performance, and there was also the holistic trust experiment. So what Lauren wanted to test is, like, of course, you need trust if you go on a mission. So you need to trust your crew, you need to trust yourself, you need to trust mission control, but you also need to trust the volcano, you need to trust the habitat. And so she checked how much trust we had, and also how it changed during the mission. So that was in a 2-week mission. And then there was some technology that was tested. So there was one person who did an experiment with AI and some other technology things. And there was also someone who brought in a HoloLens too. So she was testing how, so it's mixed reality, how it could be an added value, how people could learn things with that. It was also tested how it could be a fun part, how it could be. And then EVA equipment, of course, the ideal place to test that. So some people came with, like Mason, you've seen before, came with a full suit and tested his full suit out there. But there were also experiments with drones or spacesuit tools. And there was also the Luna Mod and Prism. So that's like a hard mount to put on your spacesuit that was tested, how easy it was to connect and disconnect. And this was to check the regolith size and color to compare it with each other. And then this was not on the 6 parts, but of course there was also a lot of artwork. And so there were lots of beautiful pictures taken. There was even like a music video made. And so this particularly, so Sharife is working together with Nicole Stott, who did like a full spacesuit with artwork, and she's making like the analog version of it. So she worked together with different crew members, so they all made like a little patch of artwork, and she combined them all together on one spacesuit, which is a very impressive view if you see the full suit. Then we also did some other activities, so we invited some local schools, just to make them familiar with the habitat and with some space things in general. So, for example, we did let them make moon muffins, so with all dehydrated ingredients. They could do some experiments, and they also had like a kind of test EVA very close to the habitat, but that they could walk around there a bit. So this is the QR code to the website if anyone would be interested. And then there is, as I said before, there is the movie of the very, very first mission at high seas. So in 2013. So feel free to check for yourself what has changed and what is still the same.
For the first time in almost 4 months, 6 researchers who've been living in isolation inside a remote habitat emerged into the cool air high on Mauna Loa. The scientists were part of the Hawai'i Space Exploration Analogue and Simulation. It was a food study conducted on a grand scale, designed to stimulate the living and working experience of astronauts on a real planetary mission, and to compare 2 types of food systems as thoroughly as possible in the context of a 4-month Mars analog mission. A bunch of cameras and journalists were there to witness the emergence.
So today, our crew of 6 people came out of the habitat for the first time in 4 months without their spacesuits on. So breathing the fresh air for the first time in 120 days. And then the crew had breakfast. I basically, myself and some friends, cooked a giant breakfast for them. My stepmom sent these for you. Went down to the Hilo Farmers Market and bought a ton of fresh fruit and chopped it up for them, and they were very excited about that.
Very good. So we have a lot of like veggies and fruits. Everything is either freeze-dried or dehydrated. But something that I think we shared in common is we were missing the texture of fresh veggies, because everything dehydrated is chopped, and so it feels really good to have a different texture.
I'm back on Earth, but I'm still in this beautiful landscape. But of course, it's going to be different once I'm back in the city. That's going to be quite different. I know this landscape because I've been walking around here so often in spacesuits. So I feel free. I feel a much more free person, but I'm also looking forward to go back to civilization and see how that feels. Like the clouds and the detail of everything is really striking. That's something you kind of lose after walking around in a suit with a kind of half-fogged visor. So that's I heard about this, and it's really true. Every single rock looks pin sharp. It's like, wow, high-resolution world. Yes, I would love to have a beer, but I'm also a little concerned that after 4 months of not drinking any alcohol, it'll hit hard. So I might take it easy.
I'm loving feeling the breeze against me, and even the warmth of the sun on my face. It's just, that's nice. You know, I want to go to the beach. I want to see the waves crashing on the beach, and I want to play in the water. I mean, we have been on a water shortage. You could only take, 2-minute showers. And so I want to get wet and hang out at the beach.
Well, back on Earth, I just happened to have 4 weddings to attend in the 5 weeks after this mission. Pretty excited about that sort of earthly welcome. Celebrating with friends and family, I think it'll be pretty great.
I've been craving mangoes, I don't know why.
I've been craving steak and sushi.
So the study is a fantastic opportunity to look at some of the issues facing long-duration space exploration. As you can see, the environment is extremely Mars-like. Some of the pictures of the site look like pictures being sent back by the Curiosity rover. And by putting a crew here, we get to start to look at some of the issues of putting people on Mars. We chose the crew to be as astronaut-like as possible, so we used the same criteria that NASA does when they're choosing their astronauts. They're required to have a science, engineering, or math background, years of relevant experience, be good physical condition, and have experience in complex operational environments. So those are, for example, if a pilot, a deployed soldier, these are all examples of complex operational environments.
My name is Cyan Proctor. This is where I lived for the last 4 months. I am the Education Outreach Officer. I am a community college professor at South Mountain Community College in Phoenix, Arizona. This is where I would sit and do my work. My job was to take photos and videos and to put them on the website and to maintain the website, but also to run this recipe contest called Meals for Mars.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Meals for Mars. Today, it's all about sushi.
Where people were able to submit recipes, and we picked 25 finalists, and we cooked every single recipe during our 4-month mission.
All right, we are back with our sushi.
And so I basically ran a cooking show from the high seas habitat.
I think it's going to taste really, really, really good.
Some arroz con pollo. This is a rice and chicken dish. I'm Kate Green from Jahida Sierra Sastra. I'm from San Francisco, California. I'm the crew writer. So as a writer, I'm always looking for new experiences. As a scientist, I love to explore and learn new things. And as a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. And in fact, I've wanted to be an astronaut for more than just my childhood. Throughout my adult life, I've been interested in space, and becoming an astronaut has kind of guided my career path in a way. This is a high seas lab. And so when I saw the opportunity, it just seemed like something that fit very well with who I was. It was a new experience, it was about space, and it was an opportunity to explore science and maybe even help the body of science, help give us information that could get us to Mars.
My name is Angelo Vermeulen. It's a very special night tonight. I'm the High Seas crew commander. 3 months in, 1 more month to go. And for the occasion, I grew our first fresh food. The biggest surprise for me is time. It was a very subjective experience of time. Time went very fast, much faster than I ever thought it would be. And that was because we had so much things to do, and a lot of the things that we had to do, we decided to do ourselves. They were our own personal projects. So you're very motivated throughout the day to keep working and keep going. And like I said, every single day was too short. And that's something that I really didn't expect at all. And the things that I expected that were going to be difficult, like the physical isolation, the being close together with 6 people all the time, they were not difficult at all. Sprouts. Fresh sprouts, which have basically been growing during the past week. I started last week.
I guess one of the biggest surprises was how well we all got along. We didn't know each other coming in, and we all come from so many different backgrounds, but I think that really worked. The diversity of the crew worked in our favor because everyone brought something different to the project and to living together as essentially a family. It was pretty fantastic.
I mean, crew selection. I am so fortunate to have been with a great group of people. We got along, we complimented each other with our skills. Everybody was clean, they were polite. It was fantastic. And I came off of I did a reality TV show a couple of years ago on the Discovery Channel called The Colony. And that's where eventually we had 10 people together, and we lived 2 months together in a post-apocalyptic survival situation. So in a way, they're both survival, but very different, because in The Colony, it was a selection of more random individuals. Whereas for this high seas mission, you know, there was select criteria. You had to meet the standards of being an astronaut. So the personalities of the crew I got along with really well because they were more like me.
Well, we're still analyzing the data, but what we found is that by selecting a crew to be very compatible, they got along very well. They've been a very cohesive crew, which has been fantastic. They've managed to make it through 4 months in isolation without killing each other or even getting into big fights, which is a wonderful thing for us and very important for future exploration.
Well, talking, really. I mean, we talked it over. I mean, that's one of the things that as a commander, I developed my own style. I focused on 2 ways to keep people together. The first one was the morning briefing, and every single morning after breakfast we would share with each other what we were planning to do throughout the day. And I thought this was important so everybody knows what the other people are doing and people can start helping each other. So that was an important thing. And I also asked or invited people to work at least part of the day in the shared room. If people didn't really felt like it at a certain day, I would never made a problem out of it, but I really invited people to try and do that. And by sharing the same space and working together, conversations start much more easily. And by making sure that people don't start working completely isolated in their own rooms day after day, you get a crew that is talking a lot, and conflicts get actually prevented by that. So that's one of the ways I worked with it. The purpose of the study is really to try and figure out a way to handle menu fatigue for deep space travel. It's a problem that we also have on Earth, for example in the military, where when people have to eat pre-prepared food for a very long time, they get sick and tired of it. They start eating less and their performance goes down. The strategy that we experimented with was to allow astronauts to cook their own food instead of just eating pre-prepared food. So we had a whole pantry of shelf-stable ingredients that you can keep for multiple years, and we were allowed to cook our own dishes with that. And that makes a huge difference. There's many favorites. It's impossible to choose just one, but among my favorite cooked dishes was definitely Moroccan tagine.
So we've got 1 pound of diced, freeze-dried, I should say, beef.
Cover that bad boy up.
Russian borscht.
Good to go.
We also made a kind of combination between enchilada and lasagna. A dish that we talked about a lot in the press before that we didn't like, a pre-prepared dish that we didn't like, was kung fu chicken.
This is something called kung fu chicken,
which is a sort of backpacker's food.
This is just add water and heat.
But once you prepare it, it becomes kind of slimy and it's absolutely not very tasteful.
It had a slimy texture that made it kind of roll in your mouth funny. So no, the People didn't like it that much. Its taste wasn't very good either. But everything about these pre-prepared meals, there was just something very similar about them. Things started to sort of blend together over time. The textures were just the same. It's a consequence of the dehydration freeze-dried process. So you can't really do much to change that. So we rehydrated some carrots and some freeze-dried broccoli. And this is chicken.
Drawing the attention to the crucial role of food when you send out people to remote areas in space. Food has such an impact on crew morale and on health that using pre-prepared food as they are using it now is just not sustainable. I think, and we really drew attention to that, and we're offering solutions for this. So I think that's definitely one of the main outcomes of this study. But also the role of autonomy. Like I said, we were a crew that we were allowed to do a lot of things on our own, which is very uncommon in space exploration these days, up to this day. Astronauts are usually more operators. They carry out predefined experiments, and they're scheduled or planned in detail. And we actually got to define our own schedules. We got an overall goal, and we had to accomplish certain goals, but the way how we accomplished those goals was up to us. And that was hugely motivating, really kept crew morale really high. So I think apart from from a proper food strategy, it's going to be really important to trust your crew and to give them a lot of autonomy when you're sending them out for multiple years in space.
This is where I lived for the last 4 months. It's small but comfortable. I really enjoyed it, and the best part was before I left, I put a shout out to my friends saying, hey, I'm going to Mars for 4 months. Would you leave me some notes with open on this day? And this is what I got. My friends went out of their way to provide me notes so I wouldn't get lonely and miss being at home. And so my best friend, Diana, gave me something to open every day. So 120 pieces of paper that were marked with the date in order, and every day I would open something from home. And
I think the hardest part about living in this environment was just not being able to walk out the front door. I'm a person who's used to getting on my bike, riding down the streets of San Francisco, going to work, seeing friends, and I just wasn't able to do that here. You can't just go for a walk. We did have a treadmill inside, and that treadmill became crucial to my well-being. I really enjoyed taking walks to work. That's what I called them. After breakfast, I would get on the treadmill and just look out the window, and that really made a difference.
Zio, this is a measures your sleep, and so this was one of the studies that we had to participate in, and so I had to wear this headband every night, and so I would put it on like this. And then I would go to sleep, and the Zio is going to register my sleep. And then in the morning, I take it off, and I just put it on here, and it will keep a record of how many hours I slept.
We were allotted 8 minutes of shower time per week. And so we devised a schedule so that our shower time would be distributed evenly throughout the week. It's something that we experienced when we were first working out the bugs of the system. We had to get used to the cycles of the septic tank, and in that process we learned how critical it was to have a working flushing toilet. The crew gets very unhappy, and it's unhealthy. So one of the things that we made sure to do is to have a redundant system, essentially 2 toilets.
Basically, what you were doing during the day was you were doing chores that had to be distributed through the crew. You were doing the food study, and you were doing personal research, and on top of that, your workouts. And then a few times a week, we would go out on EVAs. It's called extravehicular activities, walks outside in the landscape. And you would have to suit up in a mock-up spacesuit, and that takes a lot of preparation as well. So if you put all of that together, you have little time to do anything else but work.
I think that we can definitely do a mission to Mars, and so I think, and with the right set of people, I think that it would be a very successful mission.
This is a wonderful opportunity for the state to have this kind of facility here. We've got researchers from all over the world knocking at our door to have their projects on the next 3 missions. So this is very exciting. So not only are we bringing in the NASA funding for the next 3 years, but there's a giant pile-on of other researchers wanting to get involved. So it's going to be great for UH students, and I think great for the state as a whole.
As the mission comes to its close, the researchers also announced the winners of the High Seas Recipe Contest, selected from a list of recipes submitted by members of the public. The winning recipes include no-crust quiche muffins for breakfast, Moroccan beef tagine in the soup or stew category, lemon dill pasta salad as a side dish, spam fried rice as a main dish, and dark matter cake for snack or dessert. The High Seas 2013 mission is led by Gene Hunter of Cornell University and Kim Binstead of the University of Hawaii at Manoa, and funded by a grant from the NASA Human Research Program.
Thank you very much for your attention. There are any questions?
Everyone is really hungry now after watching all those recipes. But thank you so much for showing those wonderful slides. We're going to do just a computer switch while we're doing the Q&A, and I think we already have a question.
I would say congratulations, Kato. Very nice overview, in particular with a focus on all these research activities that you have conducted. So it will be very important to have like a database with articles, with also video documents. Do you have the possibility also to do like a video for each of these new mission, like they did after the 4 months mission? That could be a great set of materials. So you have recorded a lot of video material for each of the missions. You had this outreach officer. So how does it work to
unfortunately, we do not have enough video material. There was a YouTuber who came to the habitat, and so she filmed the whole habitat, and we implemented some videos recently of recent missions. Unfortunately, we do not have enough of each mission to really make a video, but we can try to make a video of overall the missions of the past 1.5 years. That would be great.
I would be happy to sponsor somebody that could work on editing all this and getting some product. The same way we have also a way to sponsor articles that are published out of the result of those missions, because really you have shown diversity, richness of experiment as well. That's I didn't realize also the creativity in some of this experiment. So well done.
Thank you.
I got one question here. About the trust, you mentioned that you run also experiments about trust. Trust in yourself, trust in the crew, in the mission. Did the trust increase or decrease during the mission? Do you have any insight on that? Could you elaborate a little bit more about this?
For the specific results, so I can give you the contact details of the PI, and she can give you all the. So I don't know the exact results. Sorry for that, but I'm happy to bring you in contact with the PI of that experiment.
I've got a quick one for you, Kato. Wonderful presentation. It reminded me of my mission there, which I really enjoyed. Were the pictures that you showed, were they recent? Were they new pictures? Like
the pictures in the presentation were recent.
So I noticed the white helmets in the we didn't have any white helmets.
So we had issues with the comm systems, as many of you know. During that's been an issue since High Seas, since the beginning. So we tried to we tested the black ones, the white ones. We tested the new comms, the old comms. So that was just one of the tests, which if the white ones were. So most of the time we used the black ones, but sometimes we used the white ones. Also for people with a bigger head, somehow the black helmets didn't fit. So we had to come up with a solution for that. And we figured out that the white helmets were wider. So for people with a big head, we used the white helmets as well. So it was just, we used them both. That's actually what it was. We just tested them.
Yeah, wonderful. Glad to see some progress on the suits. They were very good, but there's always room for improvement. So that's great. Thank you.
Good morning. I have two quick questions, actually, out of curiosity. The first one, for the pre-mission training, you have 3 people, I mean, you are one of them, training the crew. So it means that for every mission, you have to be on site with the crew, or is it done remotely?
With the first 2 parts are remotely. So it's online together with the whole crew. And of course, the last part is on site. So yeah.
And my second question, I can assume why, but I was wondering, why do you give those code names to the crew members? Why not asking them what would be their code name instead of obliging them to use one of those?
It's just practical, to be honest. It's easy that person alpha stays in room alpha, has room alpha, is using equipment alpha. It's just out of convenience, honestly. And also it's easy, for example, like in the crew reports, because they use those names, it's more anonymous, which is also practical. So it's pure practicality.
Okay, thank you for that.
Hi, Kato. Thank you so much for the amazing presentation. And yes, I always get a little bit homesick when seeing high seas again. Now that the situation is happening with high seas in Mauna Loa, I was wondering if high seas is going to use its resources and its time to actually improve the analog sector, maybe help with standardization, maybe help with improving trainings on a global level. Like, what is the focus of high seas at this time?
At this moment, it's just really a waiting period. So we are still like negotiating with the state, and it's just really unsure what will happen. So at this moment, honestly, nothing really is happening at high seas at the moment. But in case there are people interested to collaborate on like the knowledge of high seas, bring it to other analogs, that would be great. But at this moment, it's just literally a waiting period. So
okay, thank you.
Hi, thank you. That was a wonderful presentation. It also makes me a little homesick for Hawaii. I lived there for a while myself. I'm curious, because you're in a kind of a holding pattern negotiating with the state, are you going to make any upgrades to the HAB?
At this moment, actually, we're not allowed to go to the HAB anymore. So, because it's state land. So at this moment, nothing is happening there. It's literally closed off. So there is a lot of improvement, room for improvement at high seas. So in case it would be restarted, I really hope that they make some improvements on HAB. But at this moment, it's just they are literally just waiting, negotiating, and we are not allowed to go there anymore.
Just a wild idea. Would it help if the community would write a support letter on the need of high seas?
I'm not sure.
Well,
yeah.
Feel free to discuss with Henk.
Yeah.
If he needs any support from the community, just...
Okay, yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.